Good morning everyone. Welcome to Raj Malhotra IAS. Welcome to our daily Hindu newspaper analysis. I hope everyone is fit and fine, right? Okay. As I can see, the students are joining with us, right? Good morning. Good morning everyone. Okay. Fakir HD, good morning, right? Okay. So we're going to start the daily Hindu newspaper analysis, right? Okay. Before I start the daily Hindu newspaper analysis, just a quick thing for you guys, that we have a Ignited Current Affairs course batch. It's a very holistic and a very comprehensive batch that contains editorials discussion, news discussion, everything related to these aspects like Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, Hindu Business Line, Down to Earth and Yojana, and it comes at a very nominal cost of 999. So don't waste your time, be ready and smart enough to avail this facility that is coming at your doorsteps. So if you have any query related to this Ignited Current Affair batch, you can, let's say, contact this number and get yourself registered and avail the benefits of this beautifully crafted course that is Ignited Current Affairs, right? Okay. So we're going to start our daily analysis. Okay. This has been the major headline for today. Indian and Chinese soldiers clash near Arunachal border. I hope everyone would have read that news. That was in the news yesterday as well, right? So now again Indian and Chinese soldiers have a clash, but this time near Arunachal border. So this is a little bit new thing that is happening, that there is now a clash that has happened near Arunachal border. We have heard about the clashes in Sikkim, we have heard about the clashes in Ladakh, but this is the time the clash has happened near Arunachal border. So basically the area where this clash has happened is basically, let's say, it is the Tawang area. I hope everyone must have heard about this area. This is the Tawang area. We will try to look at the geography of the Tawang area as well. So this area is where this clash has happened. Luckily there were no, let's say, casualties on either side, but there were lot of injuries that have happened in this particular region of Tawang. Basically the soldiers, we could say PLA, came across this LAC and intruded into the area that has been claimed by both the parties, that is by China as well as by India in the parts of Arunachal Pradesh. This is the we could say latest series of events that have happened in the clashes between India and China, or we could say border issues. After the 2020 we had the face off in Ladakh's Galwan Valley, right? So there have been continuing growing tensions that is there between India and China, and these incidents have, we could say, increased after 2016. Let's try to look at the geography of this Tawang area, right? Okay, I hope everyone could see that this is the point which is the Tawang area. This is the point, right? It lies in the Arunachal Pradesh. It has Tibet to the north, very important. It has Tibet to the north. I would change the marker so that you guys can see, and Bhutan to the west. Now this area is very much interest to Chinese because these Tibetans have a, we could say, interest in this region of Tawang. So there is a relation between the, we could say, Buddhism, Tibetans that are following Buddhism, and they have a close relation with this area of Tawang. As you can see, the crisis that have earlier happened, that is the Doklam, which is the area of border dispute between India, China and Bhutan. And in 2020 we had the issue in the Ladakh's Galwan area, right? So we have known that China has become very offensive if we talk about claiming its territory, not only in Indian territory but also in the territory outside, let's say, territorial boundaries. It has let's say it has gone into the ventures into the territorial waters as well, right, as like in the South China Sea and as well as in the Indian Ocean region. So this thing becomes very important. Now this is the area, if I talk about Tawang area, where during Indo-China War of 1962, Chinese army had entered this area of Tawang, but later on they withdrew from this area. Later on they withdrew from this particular area of Tawang. So this becomes the latest we can say incident or a place where the Chinese has tried to would get, let's say we can say have become offensive और वो aggressive बनने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, right? So this is the thing that was very much, we could say, that was on our front cover page. Very important. You need to know the geography of this Tawang area as well, and this is the Arunachal Pradesh territory as seen in the red, which is claimed by China, right? Okay. I think everyone has now got the idea what is the basic problem is all about, right? So Chinese soldiers crossed into Indian territory in Tawang, the northwestern district of Arunachal Pradesh, which shares a boundary with Bhutan to the west and Tibet in the north. During the Sino-Indian War of 1962, Tawang fell briefly under Chinese control, which I just discussed, but China withdrew its troops at the end of the war. Tawang again became under Indian administration. Tawang has been an area of interest for China because of its Tibetan Buddhism links. The thing which I discussed, why it is an important region for China, because उसके links है Tibetan Buddhism के साथ. So this is the recent development that has taken place between India and China. Hopefully in the coming future we shall forward a policy in this regard, that how to tackle this recent, or we could say ever occurring incursions made by Chinese army, right? So this thing is very important, and you guys need to know the geography and topography of this Tawang region as well, right? Okay. Now recently this has been like a very important news that has come up, right? Okay. This thing is very important. Recently a new scheme like the Central Assistance to Tribal Sub Scheme, which focused on the development of the tribal, we could say, villages, is now being renamed as Pradhan Mantri Adi Adarsh Gram Yojana. It has been converted into Pradhan Mantri Adi Adarsh Gram Yojana, and its time period of implementation is from 2021, 2022 to 2025, 2026. Now what is the objective of this particular scheme? Let's try to see. This scheme, or we could say Yojana, it is launched by Ministry of Tribal Affairs, very important, and it is now working to develop, very important figure that we guys need to remember, it is trying to develop 36,428 villages with at least 50% tribal populations, very important, जिसमें 50% tribal population है, and 500 scheduled tribes across the country into model tribal villages. Very important. They want to develop these villages into model tribal villages so that these villages become examples for the model of the development in the tribal areas, plus these tribal villages or these model villages become, we could say, source of recipient of all the beneficiary schemes that are being laid by central government and state government towards the betterment of the tribal population. So this scheme is basically to have, or to make sure that these tribal villages have access to those schemes which are beneficiary for these areas of scheduled areas and scheduled tribes. So this becomes very important, that government has now made this scheme and converted this scheme into Adi Adarsh Gram Yojana. Earlier its name was Special Central Assistant to Tribal Sub Scheme, right? So this was a very important news, right? कई बार ना ये न्यूज होती है बहुत छोटी सी दे रखी होती है. As you can see, it was given in a very short, we could say, sideline, right? But we have to cover this news because it becomes very important. This was yesterday in the PIB as well, that is Press Information Bureau, right? So these things become very important. Okay, moving on. Now, this was a very interesting news that came up, where our Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav says a development model that shuns shortcuts for political gain needed. Also he said freebie culture has been used for political gain. Various schemes by the BJP government are aimed at bringing long-term benefits for citizens. So simply saying, they are trying to predict their side, that we are basically focusing on the long-term development of the citizens. But the major thing he has highlighted is the problem of freebie culture. Very important to understand. The problem of freebie culture. See, one thing we need to know, that by giving promises and providing free subsidies, or as a, we could say this is given as a carrot so that a political party win the election, is not the need of the hour. This thing is very much correct, that freebie culture needs to be stopped, where certain promises are made that if you get ourselves or made us vote into power, then we would be following these things like free electricity, right, free medical facilities or anything like that, right. You would be given free bus travel facilities. These are the schemes we have to make sure. We need to think whether these schemes are important for the overall development of the country or not. Somehow we have seen political parties, to achieve their short term goals, enter into this freebie culture, which is having a lot of problems in our electoral politics, because when this thing happens, people are not voting for a party that focus for the overall development. I am not favoring any other party, BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, but just the concept of freebie culture needs to be cut down, it needs to be rationalized, and if the subsidies have to be given, we have to make sure they are given for the productive purposes and they are targeted ones as well, right. So we have to make sure this whole culture needs to be little bit trimmed down so that it doesn't impact the development of the country. Do you agree with me or not on this part of concept of freebie, we could say, culture that has now come into this electoral politics? Don't matter whether you support any party or not, but just need to make sure that this thing is not good for the development of the country, right? Okay. I hope everyone agrees with me on this, right? Okay. Hanji. Okay guys. Now, the next topic is recently a new bill has been mooted, or it has been passed now in the Rajya Sabha as well. Earlier it was passed in the Lok Sabha. The name of the bill is Energy Conservation Amendment Bill. Very, very important. The name of the bill is Energy Conservation Amendment Bill. Now, there are certain things we need to see what this bill proposes and what are the loopholes in this proposed bill. हमें दोनों चीजों को count in करना है if we have to look at this energy conservation bill. First, try to look at what this bill is trying to achieve and why our political parties or a certain section of political parties are against this particular bill, right? Okay. Now, first of all, this bill aims to bring large residential buildings that have a minimum connected load of 100 kilowatt or demand of 120 kilovolt ampere within the fold. First of all, it is based on the, let's say, load and the demand. It also enhances the scope of energy conservation building code, amend penalty provisions, increase members in the governing council of Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and empower state electricity regulatory commissions to make regulations for smooth discharge of its function. But it also tries to establish the carbon markets and reduce carbon emissions as well. Now, here is the part where political parties are objecting to it. The main bill is Energy Conservation Act 2001. I think everyone agrees with me, right? But if I talk about Energy Conservation Act, its main purpose with which it was proposed as said by political parties is basically was to save energy. Now, why it is basically shifting from saving energy, this particular bill, to reducing carbon emissions and establishing carbon markets? In effect, the political parties are saying they are changing their stance, or the government is changing their stance in this particular bill from saving energy to carbon markets or reducing carbon emissions. As a result, this bill in the eyes of political parties has become ultra vires of the Energy Conservation Act of 2001. So, as a result, this bill is now being opposed by the political parties, but this bill has been passed by Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, where they are trying to enhance the scope of this Energy Conservation Act and trying to reduce carbon emissions as well. So they have enhanced the overall scope of this Energy Conservation Act through the amendment that they are trying to propose, right? So this is the thing we have to see in the recent, let's say, coming days, what would happen to the fate of this particular bill, whether it would be sent to a certain parliamentary committee or not for further adjudication, right? We have to see upon this, but फिलहाल अगर हम बात करें तो इस बिल को लेके ये सिचुएशन बनी हुई है, right? Okay. This is the opposition that I was talking about. Now, I think everyone knows that there has been a friction between the government and the judiciary. Write in the comment box, why do you think there is a recent friction between the government and the judiciary, right? I think everyone knows the problem is with the two things. One is the collegium and one is the National Judicial Appointment Commission, right? So basically the problem is government has now started to propagate its earlier National Judicial Appointment Commission, which was declared unconstitutional by Supreme Court in 2015. Collegium system has been criticized by the government that it is taking a lot of time for making recommendations to the appointment of Supreme Court and High Court judges. So somehow government is propagating against this and in favor of National Judicial Appointment Commission. Supreme Court is saying that this is the thing that we have right now and we shall stick to this particular thing, and it was totally against this National Judicial Appointment Commission. One thing the judiciary has recently said that they shall look, instead of finding fault with each other, they should look for constitutional statesmanship. Very, very important thing. This is a very big thing that the Supreme Court has said, that they shall look for constitutional statesmanship. Now, we have discussed this as well in the earlier sessions, that there needs to be a, let's say, proper mechanism, or there is a proper need to reform the collegium system. There are already certain loopholes with National Judicial Appointment Commission. As a reason, it was declared unconstitutional. But for this collegium system to survive, this needs to be, let's say, modified according to the need of the time, according to the pendency of the cases we have. We need to make sure the Supreme Court and High Court judges appointments are made in time, so that we do not have a lot of vacancy in the judges, let's say, selection. As a result, there is no pendency of cases. The judiciary and the executive has to make sure they are on the same page regarding this whole process, because judiciary and our judicial system is at a very, we could say, एक बहुत thin line के ऊपर है कि जहां पे बहुत सारे cases pending हैं, and we have to make sure that this pendency of cases does not lead to justice denial, right, or justice being delayed, right? अगर justice delay भी हो रहा है, if justice is being delayed, it is also a form of justice denial. So we have to make sure that this whole process or this friction gets resolved between the government and the judiciary, and in the coming days there could be recent recommendations that could be made by the government in order to reform the existing collegium structure, right? If I talk about collegium structure, there are two types of collegium. One, we have the Supreme Court collegium, and one we have the High Court collegium. I think you guys need to remember this कि हमारे पास दो तरह के collegium है. एक है Supreme Court collegium, I would write in red marker, and one side we have High Court collegium, right? So government is saying that it needs to be reformed, that is Supreme Court and High Court collegium, and if these are not reformed, then they must look into reappointment of National Judicial Appointment Commission, right? Okay, so this was the essence of this particular text page. Now, there were 2-3 articles that came in today's newspaper. The most important one or the relevant one was this, basically, big tech and the need in India for ex ante regulation. Now, if I talk about ex ante, it means identifying issues beforehand and try to resolve it. कि पहले इशू को पहले ही देख लो और उसे फिर रिजॉल्व करो. See, this particular article says, I have highlighted the important things that are there in the article. This particular article says the competition commission that was appointed in 2002, it basically its purpose was to, let's say, promote competition and remove the practices that are taking or that are becoming a hurdle to competition. But we have seen in the recent scenario, let's say by big tech players, whether it could be Google, whether it could be Amazon, whether it could be big tech like Apple, they are distorting the market in such a manner that they are not allowing the small players or the other players to enter into the market. Plus, they are giving very little choices for the customers and they are installing certain apps. Let's talk about the case of iPhone. They are installing certain apps without the consent of the third party. As a result, somehow we feel that our freedom or right to freedom of data is somehow being taken away by this big companies like Google, right? Or we could say Apple. If I talk about, let's say, Amazon, due to its predatory pricing, where it was selling articles at a very cheap rate, thus sidelining the other players that are there, let's say not in the e-commerce part, but like we could talk about MSME sector, they were being driven away by this predatory pricing policy of this particular company called Amazon, right? So predatory pricing was being played by Amazon and Flipkart. iPhone की अगर हम बात करें तो iPhone was what doing? It was with its pre-installed apps where the manufacturer eliminate competition without consumer consent. And if I talk about, let's say, Google, what they are doing, they are basically, the intent of Google business was to make user on its platform abide by its revenue earning service, thus an online search to directly affect the sale of their online advertising services. Thus network effects along with the status quo bias created significant entry barriers to competitors to operate in the markets concentrated. So also through its practices, Google की अगर हम बात करें तो उसने भी अपने competitors को drive away कर दिया. Google also drove away the competitors from the market. Similarly, Amazon and Flipkart similarly want to do so. Similarly, big companies like iPhone. So in this era, when competition commission was appointed, it was basically for the physical workplace, right? It was not for this digital workplace that have certainly evolved in the late 2008s, 9s and 10s and have taken leaps and bounds in this particular time. So the time has come that this particular, we could say, government needs to identify the issues that are there beforehand so that they could be resolved in time. Otherwise, these big companies are able to find the loopholes and are able to escape through their predatory pricing practices and mechanisms and distortions in this particular market. So as a result, we are not able to punish them or capture them. This is the story that has been happening. So as a result, this article wants to say that the big tech at the need in India for ex ante regulation, right? So this was the basic theme of the article, जहां पे हमें उन्हें पहले ही issues को identify करना है और उनको correct करके rectify करके big tech companies that are basically distorting the market and is hindering competition, we have to check on this, and competition commission needs to be amended or changed according to the need of the times, right? So this was the basic thing that this article wanted to portray, right? Okay. Okay. Let's try to look at the newspaper. Okay. So initial pages are the advertisement pages, right? So this was a big news. India and China's soldiers clash near Arunachal border. Retail inflation 6% से नीचे गिर गई है. There was nothing new in this or important in these pages. Nothing important. Then we had this article, big tech and the need in India for ex ante regulation. Very, very important. This very, very important, जो बहुत ज़्यादा important था, big tech ante. ये देखो अब article आया था, curbing individualism in public health. I will tell you that this article is not important for your examination. I am telling you guys, read only those things that are important for your examination. As an ex-government employee, and an ex person that has cleared these exams. I know what kind of articles that you guys need to learn, you guys need to understand, and which article you need to read. I hope you are able to fix on this point and do not waste your time on reading the unnecessary things in these newspapers, right? So this was the only article that was very, very important. Plus this thing you need to know, that this time when this cyclone Manduas had a landfall in Tamil Nadu and certain parts of Andhra Pradesh, the government was well prepared in advance for handling these disasters, right? So this was a very big achievement on the part of the administration of Tamil Nadu, where they were better equipped and better prepared in handling the particular cyclone Manduas, right? Can anyone tell me उससे पहले cyclone कौन सा आया था same intensity का, थोड़ा सा कम भी हो सकता है, in Tamil Nadu? I think people who are from Tamil Nadu would be able to answer, right? Okay. Till time I move to the next page. This thing we have discussed. There is a friction between the government and the judiciary. Nothing important. Female leadership, we have already discussed this thing, right? Yesterday, how many people assemblies have more than 10% representation? This is the same thing that this article wants to convey. We have already discussed a development model that shuns shortcuts for political gain needed. It is about the freebie culture. We have discussed Raj Sabha passes futuristic energy conservation bill, right? Nothing important in this page. Nothing important, but this was very important. Government to turn 36,000 villages as model villages, right? So this was very, very important. On the world page, nothing substantial, everything is being seen. There are protests going on in Peru, right? अफगानिस्तान में अटैक हो रहे हैं, राइट? और अगर हम बात करें इसमें, तो एक चीज थी इकोनॉमिक्स पेज में, दैट देयर वाज नेट डायरेक्ट टैक्स रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ that accelerated to 24.3%. Otherwise there was nothing important in this particular page. Okay. Thank you guys. So this was it from today's session, where we have tried to cover this thing. Okay. Okay. Sara Khan, your first class, but thank you, Sara Khan. Okay. Don't worry, Chetu, don't worry about it. Just read this particular PDF that I would be providing to you. Your purpose would be solved. I hope we have done the analysis as well. I hope you are enjoying this part. We are building up now our team, that is you guys and me, and we will try to go to that point where each one of you is able to clear your exam or do well in your career or anywhere, right? So thank you so much, guys. Where's you are providing PDF? We are providing a PDF on a Telegram channel, Raj Malhotra IAS. You can log into that and avail the facilities of this PDF, right? So our journey would continue. We would see each other again, same days, we could say same time every day, that is at 9 AM, right? Okay. No news about Iran? No. कुछ ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है अभी फिलहाल के लिए जो हमें अभी डिस्कस करना हो. दीज वर द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग्स दैट वी ट्राई टू डिस्कस. आई होप दिस इज गोइंग फाइन विद यू गाइज एंड अस, राइट? ओके. थैंक यू सो मच गाइज. सी यू टुमारो. सी यू एट 9 AM. टिल द टाइम, थैंक यू सो मच गाइज. Yes, Chetu, you can do that. It would be great help for everyone. लगता है बेलगवी में बॉर्डर डिस्प्यूट खत्म हो गया है. चेतु इज ट्राइंग टू हेल्प है. नाउ ही हैज और शी हैज, आई डोंट नो. सो राइट. थैंक यू गाइज.